Next, we're going to take a look at how we can insert a background picture. And keep in mind these pictures don't print out. They're mainly for purposes on screen, or if you're going to display it on an overhead in some way, to an audience. So they do not print out, but however, they can be very effective. You can put pictures in the background that relate to the contents of the worksheet. And so we're going to take a look at how we can do that. We're actually going to put a ship in the background of our document or of our spreadsheet. So to do that, to get the background, we're going to go to the Page Layout tab. And in the Page Setup group, you'll see the background picture or the background button. And I'm going to go to my flash drive where I have the 218 folders of the student data files. And we're going to go to the Chapter 4 folder, and in that you should see a picture of a ship. But whatever picture you're going to use, that can be located, on your C drive or the flash drive, or it could be a picture that you've taken with your digital camera that you've saved on your C drive. So just keep that in mind, and just know where it's located so that you can get to it through this sheet background dialog box. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and then choose Insert. And then we'll have to scroll down just a little bit to see where the ship comes in. Okay, it's not going to be actually on the text in this particular case, but it will be in the worksheet at some point. So I also wanted you to notice in the print preview or in the backstage view, this does not print out. So if you were to actually print your worksheet, you would not see the ship in the background. Like I said, it's only for screen purposes. Okay? All right, and then to remove that background of the ship, you just go back to where you were in Page Layout, and now the background button becomes Delete Background. So you can click on that, and that removes the ship in the background. So we'll save this again, our changes. And then we'll move on to printing guidelines and row and column headings. And as you've noticed, maybe not, in Print Preview, our column letters and our row numbers, they don't appear when we print them out. Neither do our grid lines. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. You can't see, A, B, C, D across the top, and you don't see the row numbers along the left edge of your paper. And obviously you don't see the grid lines that we see on our screen, but there may be times when placing those individual components on a printout would be helpful and make it a little bit more clear and understandable. So there are times when it's the more complex the worksheet, sometimes adding those various components of the row and column headings or the grid lines would be very helpful. So to do that, again, back in the Page Layout tab, in the Sheet Options group, you're going to find Grid Lines, okay, the Grid Lines option, and just click on Print, and that allows you to print those grid lines. And I'll go back and show you those in Print Preview in just a second. And then the headings would represent your column headings and your row numbers. And again, if you just click in that to show the checkbox, then when we Print Preview, we're going to see all the grid lines there, and then you also see the column headings and the row numbers along the side. Okay, very helpful, again, for more complex worksheets. Also, if you're going to print this out and or email it to somebody, and then you're going to talk about it on the phone, sometimes it's easier to identify the various cells if you have this displayed. And also, if it were printed out, obviously, you'd be able to reference different portions of the worksheet a little bit better if you had the column letters and the row numbers attached to them. All right, I'm going to go back to the normal view. After adding both the grid lines and the column headings, they also want us to do a couple other things. They want us to change the margins back to custom margins. So I'm going to go back to the Page Layout tab in the Page Setup group, and then Margins, go back to the custom setting. And then also we're going to change the horizontally and vertically centering of the worksheet. So again, that's back under Page Layout. We'll go back to, we can go to any of these actually, but we'll go back to the Page Setup dialog box in the Margins tab, and then center on the page horizontally and vertically. And we'll click OK on that. And then finally in Project 1G, they do want you to go back and remove the headings and the grid line check marks. So we'll take those back out. And again, if we print preview those will be gone. You can see the changes that we've made to our margins as well. So let's go back to the Home tab. Moving right along here, we're going to take a look at printing a specific area of a worksheet. Now, there may be times, especially when you're using large worksheets, that you don't want to print out all the information on the worksheet. So if you want just certain parts, like maybe I only want to see the income, I can select this area of the income part and make that a print area, so that when I print, I don't have to specify that area each time. It'll just, as long as that's been set as a print area, I can just keep hitting the print button and it will print just that area every time. If you don't do that, then if you don't set it as a print area, you can select it when you go into the File tab and click in on Print. Then you have to specify, let me get to this, print selection under the print active or the settings area. You have to choose print selection for that, and it'll do that, but then it forgets. The next time if you want to print that area again, then you have to reselect it, come back into the print or the backstage view, and then choose the appropriate setting. With setting the print area, if you know that you're going to continually do that throughout the day, or maybe when a customer comes in or whatever and you want only that area to be printed, it might be advantageous to set that as a print area. So we are going to do that, and I already have, let's see, they don't really specify that area. A3 through G21 is what they want printed. So A3 through G21 is mainly the first 6 months, and it'll give us all the data. So to set that as a print area, after you've got it highlighted, we're going to go again back to the Page Layout tab in the Page Setup group, and then Print Area. We're going to set Print Area. And notice there's dotted lines around that area. And that vertical line is our page break, so don't worry about that. But the other horizontal lines here that are dotted, that represents your page break area. So now when we print preview, I don't have anything selected, but if I were to print it out, yikes, let's get back there a minute. Let's redo that just a second. Okay, after setting the print margin, print area, I think I know what I've done. If you go back to the print options in the backstage view, notice this previously when we select print selection, if there's nothing selected, then it only prints what you have selected, which would be the active cell. That's why we're only seeing one little tiny area being printed. So that needs to be changed back to print active sheets would be fine. But that only prints out, since we have it set as a print area A3 through G21, that will print every time. We don't have to make a selection of any kind here. It'll always print that area without us selecting it and then choosing the selection as being printed, because that's the temporary. As I mentioned before, if you select it and then you click on select the print area or select the print the selection, then you have to go through each time and manually select and click that. Otherwise the print area just automatically keeps this these cells contained, and you can click on print all you want, and it'll only print that area. Now the clear print areas, you basically do the same thing. You can be anywhere in the worksheet. Go back to the Page Layout tab and go back to your Print Area button, and now you have the option to clear print area. And that'll remove those dotted lines, and if you go back to the print preview, you're seeing more information. The latter 6 months should also be printed. If you have more than one print area that you want to set, you can certainly do that. If I wanted to choose just the income area, set that as a print area, you can do that. And actually I think you have to do them all in one shot. We'll try it without, but I think you have to, yeah, you have to select them by holding down the Control key. So if I want those two areas to print, I can choose those as print areas. And see now they have dotted lines around them. However, the only problem with that is, and it may not be a problem, but it would print on separate pages. Okay, so the first print area, if you were to hit the print button right now to print the first print area on one page and the second print area on the second page. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to clear that out. If you wanted them to be all on one page, for example, in Project 1H, if you want to print out the income and the expenses and also the totals for the month of April, those are kind of all different areas. You can do that by hiding your columns, and that gives you an opportunity to set a print area that's all together. So they're going to have us do that. They want us to hide columns B through D. And so I've selected them. Go back to your Home tab, Cells group, and then Format, Hide, and Columns. So we've hidden everything, starting out with April though. And then we're also going to, now we can set the print area for the income and then starting with April. So we're just going to select A3 through E21. So A3 through E21. So now we can just keep that as a print area without having to have two print areas that are non-adjacent, because as I mentioned before, they would print on separate pages. So this is a way to kind of get around that, is just to hide those columns temporarily, then set your print area for the headings and then the month of April. Alright, then we can clear the print area again, and we'll unhide those columns just by selecting those two columns. And I'm going to right click at this point. There's an option in here to unhide. That's a little bit quicker than going through the cells group and clicking on the format button. So just another little shortcut there that you can use. Next, we're going to take a look at headers and footers. And if you know anything about headers and footers, you know that you can put in text one time that appears at the top of every page. So if you had 10 pages in your worksheet, you could enter in information at the top, like your date, or you can put pictures in there too. But it's usually text that appears at the top or the bottom. If you put text at the bottom, that's a footer. That's called a footer, and it appears again once you put it in one time. It'll appear at the bottom of how many ever pages that you have in your worksheet. So we're going to include some headers and footers using Project 1I for our example. So again, in the same workbook, to insert a header and a footer, you're going to go to the Insert tab, and then in your text group, you should see the header and footer button. And that'll kick you into a different view. You're kind of in the print page layout view is what they call it. And so you've got three different areas that you can place a header in. There's the left side, the middle, and the right side. And we're going to stay right in the middle where it's initially told us to. And we're going to choose a built-in header from Excel. You can customize it, or you can choose some that have already been pre-designed for you. And to do that, we're going to go up on the ribbon in the header and footer group, choose the header button, and you can see all these different combinations of information that will appear in the left, middle, and right panes. And the example that we want is we want it to reflect page 1 and then the name of our workbook. So right now I can't see the difference between those two, but we'll keep it at the first one here, page 1, and then the name of the workbook. So I'll go ahead and click on that. That puts page 1 in the center, name of the workbook on the right hand side. And the cool thing about this is that, again, if you had 10 pages, it'll automatically number your pages 1 through 10. The name of your workbook, if you've used a code like we have here, and you know what, I don't know if that's a code. That doesn't appear to be a code. How I thought that was going to be, let me show you something here. If you go to the Header and Footer Tools Design tab, there's Header and Footer Elements group. And if we want the file name to appear, which was the same thing, this was the title of our file name. If we use a code, then if later, let's say tomorrow, we change the name of our workbook for some reason, or modify it, or maybe it was misspelled, but we changed the name, then if we've used this code, it'll automatically update that to reflect whatever the name of the workbook is. So evidently they're not doing that. They must just be keeping it whatever it currently is. So I'm going to go back to what we had previously. I don't know if I can get that back now. Now that was a code there, but okay, so let's put in what they had before. So it's the page numbering, and the code is there for the page numbering, but it's just not there for the title. So we'll leave that as is. And then we'll go into the Backstage view just so you can kind of see what this looks like if you were to print it. Go to the print area. If you have multiple pages, there's page 1. We'll zoom in on that. It shows page 1. We'll go to page 2. It should automatically update that to reflect whatever page you're on. And it automatically keeps the file name in the upper right hand corner. Okay. We'll go back to the page layout tab, back to the view that we were in previously. In project 1J, we're going to insert a footer this time, and then we'll also go back and modify the header that we've got included as well. Now, we're still in the page layout view, okay, and we've already added our header, but we want to add a footer. So to do that, we'll just scroll down here. And you should see this is the bottom of first page. There's 3 boxes. Notice in the middle box it says click to add footer. And so in that, we're going to go ahead and click inside there, and you can type in your first and last name. I'll just put in my first and last name. And that will then appear at the bottom of every page. And in the left footer box, they want us to include the current date, and you can grab that current date code, kind of like what we did earlier with the file name. You can find that under the Header and Footer Tools Design tab. And I don't know if you probably caught on to this already, but the Header and Footer Tools Design tab is only there when you're in the Header and Footer pane. So that's a contextual tab that is there only when you need it. And now if we go to the Header and Footer Elements group, we'll find the current date located there. And again, once we save this workbook, exit out of it, come back in it tomorrow, it'll automatically update to reflect whatever the current date is. We'll do the same thing with time. If we go over to the right, we're going to insert the current time. That puts in the code that represents the current time. Alright, and then if you want to view these in Print Preview, go back to the File tab in the Backstage view and Print. And then you should be able to see the headers that we had in there, the dates in the lower left hand corner, your name's in the middle, and in the lower right hand corner it's showing the time. Next we're going to modify what's going on in the header. So we'll go back to the page layout tab for right now, and we'll scroll back up to the top where each one of these are located, and they ask that we remove the code that represents the page number, so I'm just pressing on delete, and then on the right hand side we're going to delete the file name. And we're going to insert the page number, but this time we want to put it on the left side, and they're going to go through the same steps that we did to enter in the date and time. Through the Header and Footer Tools Design tab, in the Header and Footer Elements, we're going to include the page number. And again, that same code pops up, same thing that we saw in the middle pane earlier, or the middle section. And then we're going to go to the right. We're going to do exactly what I was mentioning before. We're going to include the file name there. Okay, and that represents, as I mentioned before, the code that whatever your file name is, it'll automatically update that. There may be times when you want to enter in odd and even headers and footers, and a great example of that is exactly what your textbook is doing. If you look at the bottom of their pages, on the even pages, which is on the left side of your book, notice there's a footer in there that says Excel Level 1, Unit 1, and then on the right hand side on the odd page it's got a different footer that says Chapter 4, Enhancing a Workbook. So there may be times when you'll want different information. If it's putting into a brochure or into a textbook or whatever, you may have need for creating different odd and even page headers and footers. In addition to that, you may also come across an opportunity where you want to have a different first page header and footer. And so you can set that up as well with certain features within the header and footer area. So we're going to continue on in project 1K. We're going to remove the page break that we inserted before. Now I'm going to go back to the normal view for just a second so they tell me differently so I can get a better feel for this. And then we're going to remove the page break that we put in earlier between June and July. And one way to do that is to go back to your page layout tab, page breaks, and then have it reset all page breaks, and that'll take it back to the original area. We're also going to change margins to set this up, and again under the page layout tab, margins button, I'm going to go to custom margins and set the left tab at 3, and the right tab is also going to be at 3. We'll go ahead and click out of that. At the top of page 124, we're going to add the header and footer, and we're going to make some adjustments here. If you'll go to the page setup dialog box, okay, so I'm on the page setup tab in the page setup group. We're going to click on the dialog box launcher. Back up here just a minute. Okay, I wanted to check this page break because I was thinking that's where it was, but it was between June and July initially. So, okay, launch in the page setup dialog box. We're going to go to the header footer tab, and you can see what we have in currently in our headers and footers. And we're going to make some adjustments here. We're going to add different odd and even pages. So in this particular dialog box, if you'll notice at the bottom, there's different odd and even pages. We do want to click on that so that we have a check mark appearing in there. And then we'll go ahead and click on custom header. And in the header dialog box, you're going to see a couple of different things here. You'll see the codes that represent what we already have in our worksheet. And then and notice there's odd page header and even page header. And with the odd page header selected, this is where we're going to click the format text button. And if you lay your mouse on any of these buttons, they all have tooltips. So if you don't know what some of those represent, the pictures represent, just lay your mouse on them. But if you click on the first one, the format text, this is going to be formatting the page number, and we're going to format that so that it's size 12. We'll click OK out of that. And then after changing the text to 12 point, then we'll go ahead and at the left section we'll type in yearly budget. And I'll go ahead and click OK out of that. And then for the I shouldn't have clicked out of that. Let's go back in there for just a second. So that's odd page, and then for the even page header, again in the left section, we'll insert the page number. Okay, and again you can use these buttons to do that. We'll insert page number, and that will pull in the code that we had previously that will represent page numbering. And then in the right section, we'll type in yearly budget. And again, that needs to be set at 12 point as well. So we'll select that, font size, change that to 12. And then we'll click OK out of that. That'll take us back to the page setup dialog box. And we're going to put in a custom footer. So we'll go into custom footer. And again, odd page footer should be selected. We'll delete any data over here, which is the date. And we'll also take out the time here. And the name that you have in the middle, we're going to change the font size of that to 12, so everything's kind of consistent there. And then on the even page, we'll have our name typed in the center again. And the font size of that should be 12 as well. So those are going to look pretty much the same for right now. Okay, and then once we get the even page footer, we'll click OK out of that. Let's preview this. And we should see, we've got 3 pages here, but on the first page, which is the odd page, we'll have yearly budget and then the name of the file. If we go to the next page, we should have page number, yearly budget, and then yearly budget on the third page would be in the upper left hand corner with the file as well. And on every page you should see the name in the bottom center. Okay, so that's kind of how the odd and even pages work. Alright, now go back to the normal view here. They're going to show you how you can put information that's different on the first page. So we'll go through the same steps here. If you go back to the page setup dialog box, into header and footer, we're going to deselect this different odd and even pages, and we'll choose different first page. And then when you go into a custom header or whatever, notice what changes here. We have the header tab and then the first page header tab where you can put in any information that you want. Okay, so that just kind of gives you a feel. May not do that real frequently, but just at least know that it's there and it's an option for you. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. Takes us back to our normal view. And then one last thing in Project 1 that I want to look at is how to customize your print jobs and be very specific as to what prints. In this particular case, Project 1L, they want to show us how we can print specific pages. So if we had 10 pages in a worksheet, we may only want to print pages 1 through 3 or maybe pages 4 and 5. So we'll do that, still using the same workbook here. If we want to just print the first 2 pages, now remember we had 3 pages if you remember previously. If we only want to print the first 2 pages, go back to the File tab in the Print category, and in Pages, notice here you just type in 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 or whatever it is, and then you click on your Print button, and it would only print the first 2 pages of your worksheet. At the end of Project 1L, it talks about how you can use your print selection, and we've already talked about that in our previous item, so I won't go over that again, but that's at the top of page 126.